So we're bringing in the right person in the right role, do the right job through Chiro Match Makers. We've had 6 or 7 applicants. We've got it narrowed down to 2, but I need to have the right CAs in the right position. And then the third iteration is making sure after you have the right team in place, that's when you add the right doctor.
Genesis Nation, welcome. I'm really excited today to have with us Dr. Mark Mouw with Chiro Match Makers. And if you haven't heard of this guy before, well, you're gonna hear about him now. And he's not only a successful clinic owner, also works with TRP as a coach, the remarkable practice. And what we're talking about today is hiring chiropractors. And let's get right to it, man, because as a practitioner myself, you as a practitioner, associates are hard to find. I mean, that's it. Bottom line, like the right associate. But can you give us a history of how you got to Chiro Match Makers first?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Brian, for having us today. I'm super excited to be on this podcast. I know your users are super passionate chiropractors. I've known Dr. Brian Capra for, I think, 10, 12, 14 years, since really the inception of where this business is going. I know you guys are having such a huge impact in our profession. So thank you first to that.
Yeah.
Second, as you said it, you hit the nail on the head. Chiropractors are hard to find, associates are hard to find. And then you actually tailed off and said the right associate. And that's what I think I'll play with today as we move forward. Yes. Sometimes you can find an associate, but the right associate's really what matters. Hence the reason why we call it matchmaking, right? So the inception of Chiro Matchmakers was 7 years ago. A couple of my partners, Dr. Stephen Franson, Dr. Alan Miner, and Sheila came together inside of TRP, and Alan had a side business called Ideal Teams, and he was helping doctors really himself, but helping a few doctors here and there hire CAs the right way. And he found that there was behavioral assessing that was out there that was legal, EEOC compliant assessments that could be used to really find out how a person was going to behave inside of a practice to make sure you had the right person, the right role, doing the right job the right way. We call that the 4 rights. So Stephen and Alan started a conversation around, starting the business called Chiro Match Makers. I came along about a year later, and that's where we started to evolve into adding the associate hiring. So it actually started out as a CA hiring business, got really good at doing that first. And then we started adding the associate searches probably 5 years ago now. And that's really the evolution of where Chiro Match Makers came from. And once again, it comes to the 4 rights. The right person in the right role, doing the right job the right way. And I think you would agree with me that in chiropractic for so long, it's kind of been this owner, and then the other side was the associate. And what our numbers showed, 6, 7 years ago, is that a successful associateship lasted 18 months. And it usually ended unsuccessfully as the owner not happy with what the associate was doing, the associate not happy with the expectations the owner had, and then you saw them breaking up. And for our profession to go further, stronger, longer, what we need to have is this great synergy between owners and associates, and putting the associates into the right roles and into the right practices. And the reason why is because today more than ever, most chiropractors coming out of school never want to own their own practice. They actually want to work for somebody. Yeah. Hence the reason why we need to get this right.
When I found it, I've heard this over and over from different colleagues and younger chiropractors. Obviously, you and I have we're seasoned, right? So
yeah, I love it. That's what we call seasoned doctors, right?
Seasoned and wisdom. We got a little bit
and weathered.
These are the wisdom whiskers. It's not gray. I don't mind. Yours are clean. So I've seen where chiropractors eat their young. And that seems to be very, very commonplace in the profession. Whereas like in medical school and the medical professions, there's like a ramp for these younger doctors to actually have a good way to learn. So really, obviously, it's finding the right associate. I like the four rights: right associate, right place, right. I didn't catch that all, but basically, I know right person in the right seat. And
exactly right.
How are you determining who is the right person? Is it a level of, I've gone through some of your stuff also. So that's listeners out there. I've actually worked with Chiro Match Makers as a client previously. So I have an idea of these behavioral assessments. Can you talk about those a little bit? Because I thought that was the most powerful piece of what you guys offered.
Yeah. So what we came to find out, and this was Dr. Allen's expertise, that we brought into this business model was he had found an assessment, or there's these licensed behavioral assessments that are legal EEOC tools. And what that really means is, you guys have heard of strengths finders, Enneagram, DISC, those types of assessments. They're actually personality assessments, and it's illegal to use those pre-hiring. You can use those after you've hired somebody because they give you so much information. You can't use those pre-hiring. So they're not EEOC compliant. If you use these assessments and get turned in, you can be fined for using those. So what we found is we found a licensed behavioral assessment that was EEOC compliant. We bought the license to that. So now that we have the rights to this assessment, what we did find out when we had doctors take this assessment is there are really only 3 types of chiropractors. And I'm going to break down each one of those, and I'll give the percentages that we're seeing in our profession now.
Okay.
So less than 10% of chiropractors are built entrepreneurs. What that means is that they are business people who happen to go to chiropractic school, who then open chiropractic businesses. Yeah. Usually these are the doctors that have the large practices, multiple practices, usually at some point aren't practicing because they're doing other things, because they're always starting businesses, and they're entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Less than 10%. All right. The 2 types of associates are what we coin business builders and caregivers. Okay. Business builders make up about 25% of our profession. I'm going to go back to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs on this behavioral assessment are dominant. They're extroverts in most cases. They have low patience. They have low conformity, and they love to start stuff. They don't like to follow through. So they need to have people come around them so they can start the businesses, ideate, get it going, and then have the follow people come through, the follow through, what we call allegiance, build out and continue to build the practices so they can go on to more businesses. Well, what makes a business builder and a caregiver different is business builders are extroverted. So they can go out, do screenings, do talks, wow, close, usually like a day 2 care plan. They love to do that. They're built to do that. But after we have them in our practices 2 to 3 years, Dr. Brian, where do you think they usually go?
They want to go somewhere else. They want
to go on somewhere else. And usually it's
open their own business. Yeah.
Exactly right. You nailed it on the head. All right. The caregiver is 65% of our profession now. Wow. These are the consummate doctors. They love to come out of school.
Has that shifted a lot in the last
massively. When I'm not sure, I think we're very close in age, I believe. Yeah. When we came out of school, 20 to 25 years ago, to be successful, what did you need to do?
You had to open a business and
open up your own practice. If it was maybe you did an associate for a couple of years, but you had to open up a business, you had to put a shingle on a door and said, hey, this is my practice. Come see me. This is what success looks like. I think what we've seen in the evolution of, number 1, we have the franchise clinics that are coming out there. Number 2, we have the larger conglomerate type practices that are coming out there. What we're seeing like the medical model has for years is students are going to school, people are going to school, they're coming out, and they don't need to open their own practice to be successful, nor do they want the stress of doing that. They would rather come in and actually be a chiropractor and work for somebody. What I think also, Brian, what we're seeing is we're probably seeing a different type of person going to chiropractic school. I think 40, 50, 60 years ago through the last, up until the last 20 years, you saw that person who really was wanting to open their own business. We saw a path because we had mentors and doctors that we talked to who really brought us up before we went to chiropractic school. We're like, well, that's success.
I grew up in New Jersey, and I was just at a seminar in Jersey, and there's a different level of, and I'm not downplaying any other state, but there's like this level, this grind, this hustle, this grit. That it's very interesting to look at the landscape of those were our forefathers, and we started practices and then created these elements for now clinicians to start working.
Beautifully put. And what I think too is we have so many more people going to chiropractic school that are looking for a career instead of looking for a business, because the medical model has done that. If you take a look at dentistry, what we have 25, 30 years ago, we had a bunch of solo dentists, right?
They're all being bought out, and venture
eye doctors the same way. And all of a sudden, I think what's going on is I think the students are taking a look at chiropractic is very similar. So we do have this caregiver role, and the caregiver, the consummate doctor, right? Doctor, one-on-one patient relationships. They're consistent, they're thorough, they're disciplined, they're responsible. They just love taking care of patients, but they don't want the stress of owning a business. So what happens is us owners who are entrepreneurs and business builders, bring these doctors in, give them a great job, give them a great position, take great care of them. They get to see our patients. They get to make huge impact in your practices. And it gives us freedom to actually continue to build the business, which is our genius.
Yes.
But the problem is why do doctors get this wrong? Because doctors usually want to hire who? Somebody different than them or someone the same as them?
Same.
The same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs are hiring entrepreneurs and then they're rolling out after a year.
Exactly right. They're like, I need a doctor like
me later. Thanks for teaching me everything. I'll see you later.
Exactly.
I've had that happen. I've had year contracts leave at 6 months and like, you watch and I see them online and their practice is exactly the same as mine was. So it's, I'm sure you've experienced that. Not anymore, hopefully.
Yep. So what we've done is at Chiro Match Makers, we've created a language of understanding. So as you worked with us and now the listeners working with us, is all of a sudden we should open up our eyes and go like, okay, if I'm an entrepreneur and I have a successful office, or I'm a business builder and I'm built to build offices and I have my own clinic, what I want to do to give me more freedom, to be more of a CEO in my practice, to be able to oversee my practice instead of be just chopping the wood inside the practice, what I should do is I should hire awesome caregivers to come in and help me build my practice. So when I do have a practice, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. I always say Omaha, I'm in a suburb on the Iowa side of Omaha, which I always tell people the Iowa side is better than the Nebraska side. So I always kid on that. I think we all have that, right? But my wife's
forgive my geographical ignorance. I'm like East Coast or West Coast centric.
You know what? You can't get more further away from an ocean like we were talking about earlier than what you have with me right now. And I'm a water guy, right? I was a swimmer. So what we take a look at is we take a look at these businesses. And in my practice, I have a large wellness-based practice. It's awesome. And I have 3 doctors that work for me. And what's great is I'm in my office one day a week. I get to run my practice from outside the clinic. We have a great business model, but I have 3 doctors who crushed it in my practice. They've been with me 13 years, 7 years, and 5 years.
And are they all caregivers?
And what they are is they're built. So I have 2 caregivers, more or less, that are in our practice. They see awesome volume in our practice. And then my son, who's been with us for 5 years, he's a business builder. If his dad wasn't a chiropractor, he would have opened his own practice. What we're doing is we're training and helping him evolve into that clinic owner at some point someday.
So what's the difference? It seems like there's a relatively fine line between the entrepreneur and the business builder. How do you differentiate them?
Yeah, on a pro scan differentiation is we have 4 cornerstone traits of behavior we all exhibit. This assessment, we can actually measure that. So there's take charge trait, there's people trait, there's patience trait, and there's systems. So when you say an entrepreneur in dominance or take charge, it's dominant or supportive. And entrepreneurs are the only ones that are dominant. We're dominant extroverts, right? Yeah. So dominant extroverts, we're business builders, or more supportive extroverts. So they'll come in, they'll usually be an associate for a year or 2. They'll learn. And then what they'll do is they'll launch their practice, and their practice will be more of that extroverted kind of personality driven practice at a certain point. But we don't want that long term. That's not a great practice model, because those great practice models, there's not a translation, because people are like, I want Dr. Mark. And I'm like, for years, I would like Mouw Family Chiropractic is my practice. What a terrible name. I put my last name on the building, which we all know now.
And they're all looking for you.
Because they're all looking for me. So, right. So the first couple of times a patient comes in and they see your associate and they're like, I'd rather see them. You're like, damn, that sucks. Now I'm like, that's awesome. And the reason why is because I'm only there a day or 2 a week. My associates are taking care of patients, and there are hundreds, if not 1,000 patients that come into my office. I don't even know who they are. And the reason why is because I have a great business. And one of the things that we talk about at The Remarkable Practice is there's 4 seasons of a chiropractor's career. There's launch, there's build, there's scale, and there's exit. And we take that conversation into Chiro Match Makers and say, you know what? Every chiropractor who opens their own office is launch, other than that they buy a practice, but there's still some launch there. If you buy somebody's practice or you inherit a practice, there's still an iteration of you becoming the doctor who's making the decisions, right?
Yep.
But then we move to build. And this is where doctors for a century have gotten stuck. They are the only doctor giving care in their practice. They sometimes have an associate that they come in and out. and then we've had 2 or 3, but they move on. But the consistent Dr. Mark is there 5 days a week, adjusting patients, and adjusting patients. And then 35 years down the road, we close our office because we don't have anybody to transition it into.
Yeah.
I call that the build cycle. And the reason why is because we can never really scale to become a business.
Yes. Yeah. So
the scaling part, to be scalable, you need to have durability. You can't be the only one chopping wood, making money in your practice. There has to be other people doing it with you and then for you.
Yeah.
Number 2, there needs to be the scalability, because you can only see so many new patients. When you have 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 other doctors, you can either see all the new patients and they can do a lot of the adjusting, or you guys can share the new patients. You can gradually grow. The durability, you take a vacation or you get injured, you have a doctor there seeing patients. How many times, Brian, in your career have you heard the solo practitioner blow out a knee, blow out a shoulder? And what happens to their practice?
Or just want to go on vacation.
And that's the easy one.
Yeah.
Close my office for a week or 2. I'm paying for vacation twice.
But like when you close the office, it's like, oh my God, like you don't want to turn. I never wanted to turn the faucet off completely.
The fallout of that, right?
Yeah.
So
and then the rebuild.
Vacation.
Talking about fallout, it's like the ripple effect of like what it takes to come back. It's like you almost don't want to go away because of the stress that it creates to build. So what does that look like from a scaling? This is kind of matchmakers and TRP, but it's all, you're a resource, man. So I really appreciate you sharing this. So can you give us a couple of tips on scalability and how to get to that place where you can leave for a month and see profits or revenue increase?
I'm gonna jump down even deeper. What's the vision of your practice? We always start through what's our vision, what's our mission, what's our purpose. We just had our mid-year boardroom meeting for my team, a 5-hour meeting on Friday afternoon. Why? Where are we at now from the beginning of the year and our projections of our goals that we had last December when we had our boardroom meeting to put us into 2023? Where are we at now and where are we going? So what I would say is, initially, docs, you have to have a vision that someone wants to come in with you and help you create, right? If there's no vision, then it's just a job. So many docs I hear are upset with their team or their employees because they're just there to collect a check. And I'm like, well, the only way to get them to not just come to your practice to collect a check is an A-team player. Number 1, they want accountability. They scorecards, KPIs, how do we track them, right? Number 2, they want autonomy. They want a position that they have a role in, that they can be in control over and oversee, but accountability to do it. Yes. Number 3, they love to be trained. Are you training on a weekly basis in your practice? Yep. Day 1, day 2. I have a CA that's been with me for 12 years. I have a DC that's been with me for 13 years. We're still training over the same stuff when they started, on a weekly basis. Why? Because we have a training culture. It's look at an NFL football player. I always say they train 144,000 minutes a week, or seconds a week, but yet they only play like 175 seconds every weekend.
It's all about being prepared. But there was one key word that you said was with. So, and I just want to bring that to the attention of everyone we're here, because that's the type of leader that you are. You're not the guy who's standing up front and saying, follow me. You're the guy who's standing on the bottom at this point, the way you've scaled your business and how I'm seeing that. It's like, okay, how can, even though you said like the business builder is supportive, I can see that in the way that you're applying this to your practice. Like, I'm a supportive CEO so that you guys can flourish. And then you're filling you're keeping your entrepreneurial fire by all the other 7 businesses that you have going on, right?
We're working with, having fun with, right?
I don't know if it's 7, but it's close to it, right? Yeah.
We're having fun with it. We're definitely having fun.
Good.
So, when you ask me, where does it start? It starts at a vision that team members can get on and be a part of, number 1. Number 2, you need to have great CAs. Once again, in the 4 rights, the right person, the right role, doing the right job, the right way. Right now, we're hiring for a checkout CA in my practice that will iterate into an office manager. Because my wife's a chiropractor, but she has an adjustment since our daughter was born 16 years ago. Right now, she really works as the office manager 18 to 20 hours a week, and she's able to manage the office that way. But I want to be able to pull her out, because actually she's needed in my practice more than I am right now. Yeah, I've got 3 doctors doing my job. She's still the office manager, right? So we're bringing in the right person in the right role to do the right job through Chiro Match Makers. We've had 6 or 7 applicants. We've got it narrowed down to 2, but I need to have the right CAs in the right position. And then the 3rd iteration is making sure after you have the right team in place, that's when you add the right doctor. And it just depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Are your goals to grow your practice? I find doctors come to me for one of four reasons. Number one, they want time freedom. Doc, I'm in my practice 4.5 days a week. It's me, myself, and I just want a half a day off, or a day off with my family, or to work on other projects, or try to start to work on my office instead of being the chiropractor working in my office every hour.
Yeah.
Number two, it's I want to increase revenue. I have a patient wait list of 3 weeks. And I'm like, anybody who calls me up with a patient wait list of more than a week, I'm like,
yes,
I want to reach through the computer and pull them in. Like, why didn't you call me 6 months ago? You're losing money, man, or lady, right?
Right.
Number three, what we see is they want stability and durability. God, I want to have a vacation. I want to close down my office. And on the vacation point is, yeah, you close down your office to take a vacation. The vacation costs you $10,000. You go on the vacation, you close your office. Not being in your office costs you $10,000. And all of a sudden you double charge your vacation because number one, you were closed, and number two, you went on vacation. So how do we have stability, durability from injuries, blowout, burnout, those kinds of things? And then lastly, I would say is legacy. And I have the doctors calling me up, Doc, selling my practice in 2 to 4 years, what do I do? And what we do is I say, okay, if it's 1, 2 years down the road, let's go look for an entrepreneur or business builder to buy your practice out. Let's do it the right way. If it's 4, 5, 6 years down the road, hold on. We don't want to find that person yet. They're not going to be patient enough. They're a 1 to 2 year. You got to be able to sell it to them. Let's find the caregiver first that'll come into your office, and they'll be an asset then to when you sell the practice to the business builder or caregiver or business builder or entrepreneur. We go find that person 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, depending on what your exit strategy is. That's how you actually build the legacy component inside of a practice.
Awesome. And do you help individual clients in this way, not just finding associates or CAs, but do you help consult them in, like, do you work with people in that fashion as well? Like, if I want to sell my practice, like, do you coach from that perspective also?
Great question. So once again, I'll break up two businesses again. So Chiro Match Makers, our genius at Chiro Match Makers is to find the right doctor, the right CA for the right role to do the right job the right way. That's where we end the conversation, is us finding that. So we're recruiting business. Where I would say is there's a lot of coaching businesses that are out there that are helping with that. But the Remarkable Practice does have an exit program that we are working with doctors and building them up to help give them the runway. What we say is it's a 3-year process. Okay. There's a 1 year, 2 year, 3-year process. If you're looking at selling in less than a year, you're not gonna be able to optimize what you want at the greatest value you could get. It's really a 3-year program that we've laid out to help doctors do that exit program.
Awesome, man. Great. So as a summary here, because we're keeping our attention span to the 30-minute mark or close to that. So let's just go over. So you have Chiro Match Makers using your assessments to find either a business builder, or excuse me, I would say caregiver, business builder, entrepreneur. So you're doing actual assessments, psychological or behavioral type assessments that are compliant. So you can do this before you hire them. All those other tests are not compliant, which is good to know. I didn't know that. And then you're helping chiropractic offices actually find the right associate for the right direction. Not necessarily just find the associate, because that's what I did for years, was just put blanket ads out and say, like, hey, come in. But now, once I learned from you how to assess them in different ways, I was able to pinpoint, based on the direction and the vision that I wanted to create for the practice. So this is, super enlightening. And we'll share everything in the notes down. I've been instructed to not say down below, but it usually is below the video. It's somewhere in the link. It'll have it in the show notes or in everything else. Ways to find Dr. Mouw, ways to find Remarkable Practice, ways to find Chiro Match Makers, because you are just a gift to the profession, man. And I appreciate your fire and the work we've done together and continued collaboration through Genesis here. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.